$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES. You're listening to the SNES broadcast with your hosts, Soulblazer and George.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Super NES podcast. This is episode number 128 this time. I am Greg. He is George, and as always, we're welcome to have you here. How are you, George?
I am not you, but I am me.
Yes, indeed. Kind of get a sense of like dual identity playing this game, so it kind of fits. But anyway, this was my pick around this time, and we're going to be covering one of the more obscure games on the console. One of the things I really love about this podcast, which is also true of many other game podcasts, for example, like Ferg's Great 2700 Game by Game podcast. Hello, Ferg, glad to have you back. Is that
Whoa, Ferg's here?
I meant in general terms because he took a 6-month break and he's now releasing episodes again. So
Glad to see he's back.
yes, same here. But anyway, he said constantly in his podcast, and I feel the same way, is that like when you have a library as big as this one, there with hundreds and hundreds of games, there are many games that slip through the cracks that don't get the attention that they might deserve, because they were the victims of either bad timing or small companies or small print runs or any other factors that may have come into play.
Or original poor reception.
That's true too. Or bad translations that happened with a couple games. Translation / port. I mean, some of the ports of the games are handled like pretty sloppily. So, but anyway, yeah. So, this game covering this episode definitely fits the category of being obscure. Whether or not it's a good game or not, we're gonna hash out as we go through the podcast. But we're looking at the obscure platformer, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say it's like a action platformer, maybe.
Yeah. That's a good description of it. We're covering the game Nosferatu, which is a horror-themed action platformer game. I probably should add on. That was developed and published by Sega Corporation for Super NES in 1994 in Japan, 1995 in North America. So anyway, but before we get into that, I do want to talk about here real quick that there is some interesting Super NES news in the world to talk about since we've last recorded. So
it exists. The Super Nintendo. It's out now. Breaking news.
Well, you're definitely right. Depending upon what system we're talking about. So, after much speculation and hemming and hawing, it looks like Nintendo did finally make good on some of the rumors that have been floating around. They recently released 20 games to be played in the Virtual Console system, like their Switch.
It's not Virtual Console.
Well, emulation. That's what I mean to say. So.
Yeah, well, Virtual Console's a different service because you buy those games. But this, if you have a Switch Online membership, which I think is like, what is it, like $6 a month or something like that?
Yeah,
I forget. It's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
You get access to a select number of NES games and Super Nintendo games now.
Right. Yep. So I know the NES service sucks because I've typically seen the list.
It does not.
Well, the game. Well, let's just say the games let's just say
the game selection is not the best. But hey, this was the first time that we ever got Versus Excitebike over here in North America, and you can play it online with friends.
Well, that was also out like for the what do they call the arcade machine back in the day? Yeah, Yeah, the Burst Machine. I'm pretty sure that game was on there too. So, but as far as
Well,
home
I
release-
mean, I'm sorry. I mean on console, because
Yeah,
it was
home
on the
release, yeah.
Famicom disk system. I
yeah,
almost
that's true, too.
said I almost said that the wrong way, and that almost made me say something I shouldn't say.
Well, anyway, I don't think anybody has any complaints about 20 games that Nintendo made available on the system. Like
Oh,
the Super
Those
NES
games,
collection.
yeah, those games they chose, much better selection. Certainly.
There are. Well, I have the list here. There are a few what if like really games, but I think for the most part, it's a pretty like solid list.
Yeah, no, compared to like the original run when they first had the first how many NES games on that service, it was kind of like, I mean, it's the selection's much better, but
Right.
this is a much stronger choice of games compared to that.
So, like the 20 games currently available are Bra Brothers, Demon's Crest, Joe and Mac 2, Lost in the Tropics, Kirby's Dream Land 3, Star Fox, Super EDF, Super Mario Kart, Super Mario World 2, Super Puyo Puyo 2, Super Tennis, Breath of Fire, F-Zero, Kirby's Dream Course, Pilot Wings, Stunt Race FX, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Super Soccer, and Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. So
That's a good selection.
Yep, and like the other NES games, you also have the rewind function that you can do, like available in it. I don't have a Switch myself, so I can't really say how the games play, but I've heard pretty good comments and seen observations online that they're, the games play just fine. So
as somebody who has a Switch, they play good, because the Switch D-pad is nice and clicky. So that's nice. All the buttons are nice and clicky, which is really nice. So it feels good. Yep. And even the online multiplayer stuff is pretty good. I played some games with a friend somewhat recently online, and we didn't have any trouble or anything, and we had some fun.
Cool. But also, like for those purists out there, Nintendo apparently learns here is also going to be releasing a USB-C Super NES controller, like Switch as well, that you can pick up. If you prefer to use that instead. But
is there a price on that yet?
$30.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep.
That's cheaper than I thought it was going to be.
Well, the catch is you have to be a Switch Online subscriber to buy it.
What? Nintendo, why do you make decisions that make me wonder if you're actually aliens or not? It's like Nintendo's being run by aliens. Like, what kind of decisions are these?
Well, also in the strange decision category, unlike the NES games, they're not planning upon adding new games monthly. They're going to be added on a irregular schedule, apparently.
I think part of the thing is maybe trying to get the rights to put them on there. I mean,
possibly.
Nintendo themselves have their own games, but I feel like they want to have enough of an even spread of third party as well. So
because
they're going to have to try to track down rights and everything and see if they can get... I don't know.
Right, because a lot of these games here in this first batch are Nintendo
Wait,
properties.
I know why. Because they keep shutting down all these ROM sites. They're trying to find the ROMs for the games, and they're having trouble. I get it. Okay. That's what it is.
So for an opening lineup, it's a pretty good selection of games. There's definitely some great games on here. The really only questionable ones, there's really only like about 4 that I might say are questionable. Bra Brothers is perfectly fine, serviceable beat 'em up game. But there's so many other better.
It's a much better selection than that to put on the service. But again, it might come to rights and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, Super Puyo Puyo 2 we never got over here in the States. That's a curious game to include.
That's a good game. Technically, we did get a Puyo Puyo game multiple times. There was Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which is one of them.
Right.
There was another game I think that we got that was like renamed and all the assets were like changed to something different. I can't think of what it is off the top of my head.
Yep.
So
Stunt Race FX is another curious game to include because the game is impressive for its time, but I really don't know how well it plays these days.
I wonder if they were trying to see how their service would run with it, and since they already had it, they'd said, you know what, we might as well put it on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that requires special hardware.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, and Joe and Mac 2 is a good game. I just don't think it's as good as the first game. So, again, kind of a curious selection. But,
I have nothing to say about that game. I don't really know much about it.
Super EDF though is a very pleasant surprise to have on here. But that's a
Super
very good, what? Super EDF, Earth Defense Force.
Oh, okay. I thought you said something else.
No, it's a shooter game. We covered it way back when.
No, I know what it is.
Podcast,
I misheard you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I mean, it's a very good game. I like it a lot. It's just another, tying it back to this episode, just another like hidden gem for the system. I think that get overlooked for a long time. So
I think I prefer playing the new EDF games.
But yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a few Capcom games here in this selection, but most of these games here are Nintendo properties. So, I'm not sure about Joe Mac 2. I'm not sure which company made that game, but I know that it
was the Joe and Mac company.
Or Bra Brothers. I'm not sure who made who made that one either, but I know the Demon's Crest and
some of these games don't even have like owners anymore. Like some of these games are like some of these titles are abandonware basically. So
yeah. Joe and Mac I think was Data East property. So Data East is defunct these days. So that
yeah, but there's another company that holds some of their titles. Their copyright, whatever the heck it is.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, there's I think there's a company that holds the rights to like Burger Time or something right now.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. So
video games are weird.
Yep, indeed. So anyway, glad to see this. Yeah, glad to see this feature added. Hopefully additional games will come out pretty soon, and will also be good selections. So, we've covered a lot of these games already on the podcast. If you want to hear some in-depth talk about them, you can always go back to past episodes. But anyway, but speaking about hidden gems. I did not know what this game
Genesis Gems. Oh wait,
Yeah.
we're talking about this game. Oh
yes,
okay.
I did not know about this game until recently. I happened to see a video on YouTube one day and it looked interesting. So I figured, let me go ahead and slide into the podcast to cover some point. Somebody in that same YouTube video, I cannot take credit for this. So this is not an original thought. Said this game was a combination of Prince of Persia meets Final Fight with a little bit of Castlevania sprinkled in.
The Prince of Persia part most definitely, but Castlevania I could kind of see why, but I don't know.
I think it's accurate. Accurate. I mean, your guy is doing a lot of beat 'em up in this game, so but. Either with fist or weapons. So, seems to fit. We've not covered Cedar Corporation yet. No surprise, most of their games did not get released here in the West. So let's talk about them real briefly here. Cedar Corporation was around from 1985 to 2009. They mostly published games for Nintendo systems. They're mostly known for their golf and puzzle titles. And like I said before, most of their games did not leave Japan. They also developed, curiously enough, an arcade system known as the Alex 64, spelled ALECK, which is based on Nintendo 64 hardware.
Yeah, you saw a lot of that stuff. Like, there's one that's based off the Dreamcast hardware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there's one based off of original Xbox hardware. You saw a good amount of that stuff all the time.
So just to mention a few of their better better known games over here in the West. For the NES, they released The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, which is a very good action game based upon the book. Eight Eyes, which is kind of a Castlevania-ish game that's also like very solid. The infamous prototype Bioforce Ape, which was finally found and dumped last year, so we could all play it.
Wait, that was only last year?
I think it was last year. Maybe it was last year. Maybe the game was known that the game was known before that, but the game hadn't been dumped to that point.
Huh? I thought it was like a few years ago or something.
It could have been 2017.
I don't know. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I might be off. For the Super NES, they also released the F1 Rock 1 and 2 racing games, and they also released a Chopper Attack for the N64, and also a very solid shooter, Project Slipheed for the 360, which came out here by Square Enix.
You mean Sylpheed?
Selfie, yeah, sorry, but their last game was 2004 after releasing Legend of Golfer, like the GameCube. I think that was a Japanese only game. Their parent company finally dissolved in 2009. So, pretty unknown company, like I said, here in the West at least. So, the inspiration for this game came upon one of the programmers said in a very brief interview bite from an article I found online. Was loosely based upon, inspired by the famous German sound film Nosferatu from 1922, which the company there made kind of secretly. They wanted to make a Dracula-inspired movie, but they didn't want to pay the rights to the estate, Bram Stoker. So they kind of changed a few things to get around that, but it didn't stop the company from being sued. The company being sued to oblivion anyway. So, and most of the copies of the movie were supposed to be destroyed, but a few of them did survive, and nowadays it's nowadays like it's to be a classic. So, kind of interesting about that. So Nosferatu just kind of just basically means a vampire, as you probably already figured out. It's a cinnamon. It's not really like
it's a cinnamon?
Yes.
You mean a synonym?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Either I heard you wrong and I'm just like getting loopy here, or I don't know what's going on. I heard cinnamon. That might just be me.
Yeah, either one's a possibility. But anyway, so the plot of this game is pretty basic. You control a young man, is the very boring name of Kyle. And during the game, your girlfriend Erin is kidnapped by the vampire Nosferatu, and you're trying to ride to his castle to defeat him and get your girlfriend back. So, in between stages, the game shows you a map, kind of shows you your progress. As you progress as you go through the game. It's pretty short if you know what you're doing. The long play online is only like it's only like 55 minutes long, so not a terribly long game. So the actual gameplay, it does have a lot in common with Prince of Persia, because you're doing a lot of because the gameplay is like all side-scrolling based. You're doing a lot of like jumping, climbing up, climbing down, going through doors, checking out dead ends, that kind of stuff. Definitely has a very Prince of Persia feel to it as you go through it. So the game overall has 6 stages, and there's a boss fight. There's a boss fight at the end of every stage, and Kyle can also find various weapons along the way to help him out. He starts off with his fists. He's a pretty good fist. he was pretty good. He's pretty good using the fist actually, considering he doesn't look that strong.
I thought you were going to
so.
say he's a pretty good fister. And I was going to be very concerned.
No, I made sure not to say that.
Okay.
He also has. So Kyle also has. Kyle also has a number of like unique moves, unique moves, special combos you can use.
Like run and jump.
Yes. Also like uppercut and throw and that kind of stuff. So,
right.
And that kind of, and those combos are very helpful to get through the game. Because enemies, enemies do get stronger as you go through the game.
Yes.
The
game gets harder as you play. It's a very weird concept, but
that's a weird concept. I thought most games did that.
It's sarcasm, Greg. But all right.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, you also get stronger as the game goes on, thank God. But
yes.
You're able to get you're able to find various kinds of crystals as you go through the game. Red crystals are used to give you power-ups. For 3 crystals you get, that gives you a power-up. And green crystals recover your health. Blue crystals extend your health bars so that you can take more damage.
And you get Pepsi crystals.
Pepsi crystals?
Yeah, like Crystal Pepsi.
Oh, yes. They actually brought that back for limited time last year. That was pretty good.
Yeah, we didn't get any of that over here.
Oh, that sucks, but yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the enemies of this game are pretty standard horror fare. You have like Frankenstein monsters, zombies, gargoyles, ghosts, that kind of stuff. So the bosses are pretty generic. Also, you have a werewolf, a beast man, etc., etc. So, but it does the job. The enemy. There's always. I do like the fact how enemies don't always appear. There are some quiet areas of the game. So like there are certain parts of the stage, especially kind of more hidden out of the way areas. We're not accosted every like 5 seconds. So gives you a chance to be able to get your get your bearings, catch your breath again.
Yep.
So anyway, so the gameplay, as I mentioned before, is kind of a unique mix between Prince of Persia elements and also some fighting elements. As you go through the game, the gameplay itself I thought was pretty solid. The biggest problem. There were several problems I had with the game, but the biggest problem I think, as far as the actual gameplay itself, is that your character movements are very slow. You're very plotting deliberate type. So it's hard to very hard doing things in this game with any kind of deliberate speed. Also, the controls I thought were kind of frustrating. They're perfectly fine, but they just they don't feel right.
The thing about the way that the game controls is you go into different modes and it's weird and annoying. So normally you're just I don't know you're just neutral, I guess you can say. And you're walking around, and then what is it? You have to do you have to double tap the D-pad to run?
Yes.
Yeah. That I don't like when games do that, but that's how you run. And then when you attack, you go into this fighting mode, and you're locked into. I'm pretty sure you're locked into looking one way unless I think you have to hit a button to turn around or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah.
And
then
that's correct.
You're stuck in this fighting mode, and I had some trouble figuring out how to put my fist down. So then I think you have to double tap to run again. I'm not sure. It's a lot of it's kind of clunky.
It is, yeah. So I mean, it's like Super NES has lots of buttons on it. They kind of feel like they could have done, done a better job of mapping it.
Yeah, that's another thing is there's a lot of games on this platform that are you're using 3 out of the how many buttons on the controller to do stuff, and
we count and select 8 buttons. So. And that doesn't even
technically, I wouldn't. They're more of a utilities type of thing. They're not not like a commonly used thing. Like start's usually pause, and select is usually like change weapon, or it's some sort of like utility button. So I technically don't count them, but like I don't think this game used all the face buttons, right?
It
used three of them. It's like
yeah.
you can add a run button, you can add a combat mode button. Like what is it, like Karateka, where you have to go into combat mode to fight, and then
Yes.
to go around you have to get out of combat mode. And could have been kind of like that, but there's more buttons. It just makes me think like if I was making a game for this platform and I was only using 3 buttons out of the however many 4 face buttons and 2 shoulders,
Right.
shoulder buttons. If I'm only using like 3 buttons out of all of that, I'd be thinking like, how can I use like the whole controller instead of just using 3 buttons? But I don't know if there's a time restraint on this game or what,
I don't know.
I don't know where they were really focusing, but definitely this game looks like it feels like they focused more on like visual design and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because this game looks wonderful, actually.
Yeah. I was actually gonna mention the graphics next, but yeah, just to finish up the controls like real quick. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It makes me wonder. Makes me wonder. It makes me wonder the game wasn't initially intended for some other system, and they decided to just to put it on the Super NES later on.
I don't know about that, but it definitely feels clunky, and there is much more like room. Like there's much more breathing room on the controller here.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I'm not sure if it's just because of how game design was back then, or what. You can only imagine, really.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that. I mean, the controls are fine. They get the job done. They're just not very user friendly. I'd probably say it definitely takes a bit to get used to them.
Yeah.
I mean, like your biggest aggravation playing this game is gonna be the controllers, I think, because
I definitely had some problems.
Because there's a time limit, but it's pretty generous. The map's not so complicated that you're gonna get lost. The difficulty ramps up at a pretty good pace, so as long as you're actually good at a game like this, you're fine. The controls are definitely gonna be your most frustrating part of the game, but George, you definitely mentioned a point. You definitely mentioned a point just then. I was going to bring up next, like our next talking point. I might go so far as to make the bold claim that this game might be in the top 10 list of the best Super NES looking games. Period.
Okay.
The graphics are really gorgeous. I mean, these are some like really great graphics, like for a 16-bit system.
There's a lot of attention to detail when it comes to the visual aspects of this game.
Right, exactly. Just the small points too, like the monster design, the colors used, the background shapes, the scenery in the boss fights is just simply jaw-dropping.
Yeah, and even the not really the lighting, but like the shading of everything is a little more like grayish, and it's like it's a little more gloomy. It's definitely not like a bright, vibrant game like some other platformers you would see on the platform.
Yeah, I'd almost call the actual game graphics almost like sepia in tone. I mean, not quite that far, but pretty close to it.
Yeah, it's more of like it's got like not old timey, but it's not like an old timey feeling. It's more of like supposed to be a little more grim, a little more like I don't know how to explain it.
But yeah, definitely horror-ish. I mean, like for sure. I mean, the lighting, lighting's very good. The walking animations, the fighting animations are pretty solid. When the character moves. A lot of attention was spent on the graphics, like for sure. So I would
say that the animations of the player character are beyond solid. Look at the little details you have, like,
Oh, yeah.
his clothing when you're running or you're jumping and falling, like his clothing like really moves as if, as if he was actually doing it. It's such a nice touch.
Sure.
Everything, when he is jumping, when he jumps straight up to grab a ledge, basically everything the player character does is animated very well. It's very nice.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Very appealing.
There are some brief cutscenes that are used in between chapters to kind of help tell the story, and those, like, and those cutscenes are also top notch. Like, very, very, good thing graphics. Along the intro, along the intro and the ending of the game itself also. So,
right.
This was not the programmers. This clearly was not the programmer's first time programming around Super NES, because the graphics are so good on the game that they clearly had experience. And for a small company like this, to be able to bring that much power out of the Super NES for their game is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
The music I thought was very solid too. Very good soundtrack.
It invokes a certain feeling, that definitely matches with the theme of the game. You know what? Yeah, the music is pretty good. When I was listening to it, some of the levels were like giving me this like creepy kind of like kind of like it almost made me kind of like jumpy, thinking that like something might jump out at you. It definitely has like a creepy kind of scary-ish kind of feel with some of the tracks, and some of the other ones are just pretty good. It gives you a good feeling of how you should basically feel, but also kind of not too actiony in a way, but like definitely just gets you there. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those soundtracks. It's one of those soundtracks soundtracks I think that grows on you like over time. Maybe you don't like it at first, but the more you listen to it, the more like sinks in.
I mean, this isn't something I would just go and just listen to randomly, but
sure. But
if I were to play the game again, which spoilers, I will not. It's definitely a very nice addition to the game.
Yeah, it fits the scene very well, like for sure. So
yes,
but yeah. So your enjoyment of the game, I think is gonna depend on.
It depends on what you like.
Yeah, do you like Prince of Persia? I mean, do you like fighting games?
I'd say this game cannot solely rely on if you like Prince of Persia or not, because it's so different. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's why I also like fighting games also, because this game does a very good job of blending those two genres together, I thought.
Honestly, I don't think the fighting is good enough to bring in any kind of beat 'em up or fighting game fans to this game.
Not by itself, but I think together. I think together, I
think if you like both of those things, and if you would want to see what a combination is like, that is what this game is. But
because you do fight Prince of Persia, you just don't fight as much as you're fighting like in this game. But
and the fighting is totally different in that game.
Right, exactly. So mind you, we're talking about the old school Prince of Persia games. I have no idea how
not the Ubisoft 3D.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we're talking about classic rotoscoped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So, the programmers do seem to have been inspired a lot by Prince of Persia, based upon just how the game looks, as well as how it plays.
Yeah, how it's animated and everything. Certainly.
Sure. But,
oh yeah.
So I guess George, I know you're something of a fighting fan. Do you not like Prince of Persia?
I like more of beat 'em ups, but I like Prince of Persia. I really do. But Prince of Persia is pretty different from this game. This game does
True.
have some elements of Prince of Persia,
True.
but Prince of Persia is more about like, I don't remember. There is a time limit for Prince of Persia, right?
Yes,
But
there
it's
is.
not based on each level. It's just in general, I think, right? I don't remember now.
It's game based.
Right.
What
So
that means is
this
that, you know,
game, there's a time limit on each like
level.
area, which
Correct.
it's I hate time limits in games, really.
I do
but-
also, but I do also, but the time limit in this game didn't bother me. Like, wasn't an issue.
So it was an issue for me because there were times where I got stuck and I couldn't figure out
okay.
where to go or how to get to my destination. And
Makes sense.
I think part of it was my fault, but there were some levels where I just like, it's like I need to get to the other side of this wall, but like, and it looks like there's something here that I can do, but I just can't figure out what I need to do. I can't push the wall. I can't do this. I can't do that. What do I do? And then I'm stuck roaming around, and then I run out of time, and it sucks. It does. I have to be honest. Like, the level by level timer kind of sucks. If there was no timer, that'd be nice because I wouldn't have to rush through. If there was like a general timer, it wouldn't be as bad. But like losing a life because you ran out of time is like such.
Yeah, it sucks.
I hate it. It does suck.
I mean, like, you know.
But otherwise, yeah. So this game is, I don't know. Prince of Persia had a better like way of exploration compared to this game. Like you can do exploring, but it's also like, hey, you can't explore too much or you're gonna run out of time and you're gonna die. Whereas Prince of Persia was basically based on exploration and figuring out. I wouldn't say exactly it's like puzzle-ish, but there's kind of puzzles in there. You have to figure out like when to go and when the trap's activating, so you make sure you don't die. This game has kind of that, but it just, the Prince of Persia aspects seem more shallow than Prince of Persia. And the fighting stuff is like very shallow. I wasn't too fond of it just because of like getting stuck in the fighting mode, and also like I think there's only one button you can use for fighting, which using one button for fighting in a game isn't super great.
Yeah.
If you have to do weird D-pad combinations and stuff, and I wasn't too, I didn't like that too much.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I certainly agree with you on some of those issues. I didn't have the same, all the same problems that you did, but I definitely agree. Prince of Persia did some things better. All in all, though, I did like this game. I thought it was a very unique blend of like Prince of Persia with fighting and with like a fighting and a little bit of Castlevania sprinkled on it, like for good measure.
This is one of those games that I like looking at, but I don't like playing. And I kind of like watching people play it, but not too much. Like, it's an interest. Like, I like to watch it to see like what happens later on the game, but otherwise, I don't really find much replayability out of the game, to be honest.
Yeah. I think this game has a separate. I think the game suffered from that problem. Yes, because because once you beat it once, it's like, what's the point anymore? But so
right.
But
you play. Well, I would say you play it again to see your girlfriend turn into a vampire, but you're probably gonna do that the first time you play the game.
Yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, I mean, like, I thought this game, it's the gameplay is not great. I will, I definitely will agree with you on that. However, I think this game does, I think this game does enough unique things, uniquely enough. Sorry for that double word choice there. that people who enjoy Prince of Persia and fighting games, I think should probably check this game out, because I do think it is kind of like a hidden game in the system. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a gem, but it certainly is one of the more games that probably deserved more attention than it got on back when it got released. Because it is a very unique game on some ways, and like we said, the graphics in this game are just absolutely gorgeous. So I mean, looking at the game, at least for the visual appeal is appeal at least once is like worth something. But
this game is like a gold ring you find in the sand at the beach, but then you realize that it's only gilded.
Yeah,
that's what it's
kind
of like, this game.
But yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't call it a great game, but I'd probably call it like a good game. I do agree with you that I wish the programmers had spent more time working upon the actual control scheme and the gameplay as opposed to the graphics and music. But
yeah,
the music was actually farmed out to a different company. I did find that in my research. A company called Opus Corporation actually did the music for the game. So,
is that a company that still exists?
I couldn't find any information about them.
When I said that, I spat all over my mic. That's great. Thanks.
All I can tell you is that is that it's a Japanese company. So
okay.
But yeah. So I definitely appreciate what the programmers were trying to do here in this game. I get what they're going for. I appreciate the effort they put into it. I think in some ways it fell off the mark, but I wouldn't go so far as to call this I wouldn't go so far as to call this game a flawed gem, but I would call it to be a very interesting experiment. That people who do enjoy games of this nature should check out, because like I said, I don't think many people I don't think many people know about this game then or now. It was a small company releasing it with a small print run, which affected pricing. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. So and very few people covered the game when it first came out way back when. So, but so interesting but flawed, I guess, is the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
So, about the only people who covered the game back when it was released were two magazines, Joypad and actually EGM also gave it a review, which I'm surprised they actually a big magazine like that you actually notice a small game like this. But I'm sorry, GamePro also gave the game review back then. All the reviews are pretty much the same. Joypad's really only outlier on here of 91%. Makes me wonder if they were bought off or something. But Game Informer, GamePro, EGM, they all gave it around the same marks, around 6.5 to 7 out of 10, which seems fair to me.
Yeah.
And what they said about the game, we pretty much already the main points about the game are issues that we already talked about. They called it, GamePro called it a very frustratingly difficult but still worthwhile cinematic platformer. And they also criticized, we didn't even talk about this, something else the game suffers from as a flaw. No password feature. So.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's like you want to play this game on original hardware, you have to beat it in one sitting, or
you get one of those third-party things that saves where your game was.
Right. Yep. So, but
I can't imagine what they cost now.
Yeah. I know save states are a feature nowadays. I'm just saying, way back when. This is definitely a game that would benefit strongly like a password feature. So, why it was included, I have no idea. But anyway, they also praised the strong atmosphere of the game, which I agree with. And the slow-paced strategic approach, which I guess depends upon what you're looking for the game coming into it. Maybe consider that to be a good thing or a bad thing, depending upon depending upon what you want from a game.
Right.
So, the 4 reviewers for EGM all praised the graphics and sound, but they all complained about the poor controls, of course. And they also talked about the very, and they also talked about the very long development cycle. I couldn't find anything online to confirm this, but they mentioned in their article that apparently this game had been in development for a very long time. It actually, it actually was announced before the Super NES had even launched, and 1991. So, maybe the game just kind of, maybe some of the problems of the game just a result of how long the game spent in development. So, also from more modern take on the game, our friend and recent co-host on the show, Brett Weiss, covered the game like a while back for the All Game website. He did that review back in 2015. So, he praised the game's graphics and audio, saying the game was imbued with cinematic style and flair, but also like everybody else did, he criticized the controls, and he also felt the game's combat was quote redundant and largely unexciting as far as the gameplay went.
Yeah.
So, I mean, decent scores. I think the scores are pretty accurate for the most part, except for that 91%. It's what they're smoking, but
sometimes weird people get into game reviewing jobs.
True.
And yes.
So anyway, I mentioned before this. As I mentioned before, this was a small company with a small print run. CETA had a U.S. branch, but they were never known as a very prolific publisher. Even though I think most of our games are pretty good. Looking at those tier games, I thought most of our games are pretty solid. At least the ones we got here in the West. But, and would you be surprised to find out, George? This is actually one of a handful of games that had reproductions made.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Because if it's rarity, so.
Okay, I guess that does make sense.
So, there are copies of the game available online right now on eBay. Not a lot, but there are. But there are enough on there to give you some choices. For all 3 categories: repro, cart, and CIB. At the time of recording this, 9 copies were currently listed for sale. 16 copies have recently sold. The repros were pretty consistent in pricing. All those repros sold for $25. So
that's not too bad.
No. Loose cart prices varied wildly depending upon the condition and who was selling the game, it seems like. You could have a beat-up copy with a torn label for $32.
What?
Or conversely, you can also have a pristine copy of the game currently for $155.
How about I pay nothing and I don't get the game?
Yeah, and these are all sold prices. So, by the way, CIB gets worse, obviously. There was the cheapest CIB copy sold for $142. But the most complete and pristine copy of the game, which also included a poster, your favorite thing, George, which the other CIB copies did not include.
Wait, why is the poster my favorite?
Well, you mentioned before how you like posters a lot in games, so.
Oh, okay.
And this game is originally shipped. Did have did include a poster. It was just like it was just the box cover art, but still it was nice to have. So. Anyway, yeah, because that poster being included rejected the cost of the CIB copy so recently for though. It commanded to, it was able to sell for $255.
No, thanks. Wow.
So, also as a side note, I understand people out there can't see this, but I'm going to send George through our link a copy of the Japanese box art, which I think looks much better compared to what I got over here, in the States. So, here it is, George.
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't pass.
No.
It's giving my children nightmares.
I mean, like, we have complaints now about, like, what was the recent story about how, oh crap! There was a game that came out recently that game that came out recently that parents are complaining about, like, the parents were complaining about giving their kids like nightmares.
I really wouldn't know.
Let me see if I can find that like real quick here.
Yeah. So this cover, the Japanese cover, is like Dracula, or I guess a vampire, I should say. It's a Dracula. A Dracula is carrying this like unconscious woman, as hell demons are coming up from the bottom, and there's a little bit of fire. What the heck? And then like the castle or whatever is in the background, and it's all foggy, and it looks pretty cool actually. This looks like something a metal band would put on the cover of their album.
Yeah,
that is what that looks like.
Yeah, it does actually. That's a good point.
Yeah,
I thought about that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So I mean, you're right. I do understand why they had to change it, like the U.S. release, but just a. Oh, I'm sorry. Like it wasn't a game. It was recent. There was a recent article in the Providence Journal, our local paper here, complaining. Some parents complaining that billboards and ads like the It sequel, that were terrifying their children.
Wait, what game?
What wasn't a game? It was a movie. The It sequel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they complained that the ads, they were complaining the ad campaign for the movie was like too graphic. Which maybe, I guess, depends, but.
Why can I not find the American cover for this?
Gotta have a picture out there somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. So, while I look for that, George, you have any like final thoughts like on the game itself?
I think I said everything that I wanted to say. Like I said, it's a game that I wouldn't want to play, but maybe watch to see what it's like.
Oh, they actually did use the Japanese cover art, at least part of the Japanese cover art, like the US box cover. Let me.
Oh, okay. So what I see is accurate.
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean.
Okay, so it kind of uses the original art, but the original art is pretty good.
Yes, it is. It's very, very good. So
yeah.
And this got rated. I've got this game came out during a time period in which the ESRB, the ESRB existed. So
yeah.
But kids to adults, that seems fair. But
yep, that's they would call that E for everyone now.
Yes. So yes. I'm not sure I'd agree with that.
I'm not such a weird rating. So the way that ratings work, right? It's not on like who should play it. It's like based off of who can play it. Like they have basically a checklist of stuff. So like just because there's no blood or anything. That's why it's a K to A rating, but it doesn't mean that it is for kids, which is so misleading. That's why they changed it to the everyone tag, which still is not the best, but it is more accurate than kids to adults, because that kind of meant like, oh, this is for kids, or people would take it as this is for kids. Yeah, so like car simulator games like Forza and Gran Turismo, those obviously have the E for everyone tag, but like those games kind of aren't for children because it's like a huge like car driving simulator, and you have to like know actually how to drive a car to really get a lot of play out of that game. That's just one of the examples I can think of about how like ratings are not for who should be playing. It's like it's not, the rating is not like this is made for this. It's like what's in the game is like it's trying to it's like a not suggestion tool. It's like a like if there was blood, like, hey, there's blood in here, like for audiences that should experience this, or teen and up or whatever, stuff like that. So
Right. Yeah.
and people use the ESRB ratings as like, oh, this should be for kids then. It's like, no. So this game is most definitely not for kids.
No, definitely not. But
No.
teens are fine playing it. Or teens are fine playing it. I think. I think if the game came out today, they could probably get like a T rating.
I don't know. The ESRB and this country as a whole has been getting more and more lax on things. Like things that are rated teen now would probably get a mature rating like 10 years ago. Like honestly, I remember getting PS2 games that were like rated mature, and it was mostly rated mature because there was like profanity and stuff like that. But like nowadays, you can get away with a good amount of profanity before you start using the F word and the S word and all that stuff, and then it starts going into mature territory. But like, yeah, if you look up like the evolution of game ratings and what certain games have gotten on their like ratings and everything, it's really changed. I think some games today honestly would probably get an adult rating like 10 years ago.
Yeah, you may be right about that. So, but anyway, yeah. So I was happy to. So yeah, I was happy to check this. Yes, yeah. I was happy to check this game out. This game does have this game actually does have a lot of fans online. So I think. I think it just depends upon what kind of gamer that you are and what you enjoy. That will strongly determine how much you feel how much you like this game or not.
Yeah,
so,
this was definitely an interesting game to look at, but
oh yeah, sure, yeah,
not my favorite. Nowhere near that actually.
Oh, yep, fair enough. I did not hate it as much as you did. I do agree the game has flaws, but it's definitely not a great game. I think it's like a decent game. So, people who enjoy similar games, who never heard of this game, as I'm sure most of our audience out there has not, I would encourage you to check it out at least. But yeah. One last thing to finish up with. The difficulty I thought was okay for the most part, but these are really hard boss fights.
Yeah.
I mean, these boss fights are very difficult. So
there should be like difficulty ratings on video games and be like, hey, this game is pretty difficult. Don't pick it up.
Yeah, and I don't think you have the option to change the difficulty in the menu.
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, for the menu screen, just like you. So
it's just like, hey, good luck. Also, you're gonna get your butt kicked.
But this was also from time period. This was also like a time period like people didn't have as much money to spend on games or didn't have access to the game libraries they do now. So they expected to have a game for like 6 months or so. After you beat it.
This is back when people were crazy, and if a game was difficult, they would just keep playing it and enjoy the torture.
Yep, that's me. I mean, Friday the 13th, the NES comes right to mind.
Oh no!
You comes right to mind for that.
Oh.
So, but which nowadays I like. Like
nowadays it's so different though, because like if the game is not like super duper great or anything, it's a bad game. Which is like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Like if it has any flaws that people don't like, it's like, no, this is a bad game. It's like, what? I don't know. Maybe I just have tolerance to games that aren't like the best, but are like all right to play. Because I mean, I grew up in like the PlayStation PS2 era, where like there were a lot, and I know I'm basically preaching to the choir right now, but like in the era that I grew up in, there were a lot of shovelware and just crappy games that weren't super great, or some games were just way too difficult. But yeah, it's totally different now, and a lot of games have accessibility options now for colorblind people and disabled people, and I'm honestly not really angry at games getting easier to play. It's just some games just lose their depth, which is upsetting.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. But
Yeah.
but at least we have, at least we have a lot more options out there for games.
Oh
now.
yeah, we have like the options compared to even just in the PlayStation era compared to now. It's just you can't really compare it.
Yeah. So I guarantee you that anybody out there that can find a game that they like. Like if you, for example, if you want a very difficult, difficult game series, there's always the Dark Souls games. So,
No.
but so you always have things to fall back on depending upon your taste. So,
And if
it's good.
if you're disabled, now you can get an Xbox One, get one of those adaptive. What are they called? I forget what they're called. There's some kind of special controller peripheral that you get, and you can customize your controls. So if
those have been around since the NES
your hands
days,
aren't very good, or
except they're a lot more
something like that, you can.
Yeah, they're a lot better like sensible these days, like for sure.
Oh yeah, because it's totally customizable. Back then, you had to get like a specific controller that was made for you, and I couldn't imagine how expensive that got. But now it's like what is it, like a $40 peripheral or something you can get? And
something like that, yes.
you hook it up and you set it up, and that's awesome. Yeah, a lot of I see a lot of disabled vets play on the Xbox One with that adaptable controller thing, which is really nice. Some use like foot pedals for certain buttons, and it's amazing. And those people get really good at those controls, and they're better than a lot of like just normal controller using people.
Oh
and
yeah,
it's awesome.
Yep, definitely.
It's really awesome.
Yep, sure. Like the controllers are also easier to use these days. I mean, like for example, like I remember reading an article way back when I was a kid, of like about how Nintendo provided special controllers for kids in the hospital who were like paraplegic, who couldn't use their arms or legs.
Yeah.
And so they rigged the controller so that that was controlled by a straw. You blew into the straw to use the A button and stuck it out of the straw like use the B button. So that's how you played the game.
Oh god, I can't imagine like certain games where kids are just hyperventilating because they have to hit the A and B buttons alternatively. Oh god.
Right.
Video games are more accessible now.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So I mean, like it worked. It worked. It just wasn't the most ideal solution. Like now, it's like now they're a lot better. So, but anyway, so that'll wrap up this episode.
But you cannot play this game with your feet, and you cannot play it with a straw.
No.
Why would you want to?
No, you want every advantage you can get like this game. So, but anyway, fun to check out like an unknown game. We're checking out another unknown game the next episode. I don't know if you've played this game, George, but have you played this already?
Nope.
Okay. So what are we covering next time?
Super Fire Pro Wrestling X Premium,
which is a Japanese only game, right?
Yes. This one specifically, yes.
Yeah. I
don't think if any of those came over here until like PlayStation or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Something
I think all the
like that.
games from this time period were all Japanese only before the series started coming over here to the West. So, but anyway, yeah, it should be fun. So,
yeah, I'm gonna have to teach you actually how to play the game.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
You can do so then, like through texting or messages later on if you want to. But okay. Duly warned. Thanks.
Yep. It's one of those games.
Okay then. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, etc., want to recommend a game yourself, please feel free to check us out on either Facebook, or you can also send me the email directly to the SNES podcast@yahoo.com. we also have a Patreon, www.patreon.com/the SNES podcast, or for as little as $1 a month, you can get some cool perks, such as being shouted out by the end of every episode, like I'm doing right now with Chad, David, Corey, and Sven. Thank you very much for your help and for support. Higher tiers also give you things like dictating a game, early access to the episodes, and that kind of stuff. So, George, where can people find you at?
Well, if you use Twitter, that's a thing, I guess. You hear me talk about Borderlands 3. That came out recently.
Yes, it did. Yep.
Yeah. So if you use that, I'm on Twitter. My handle is @_Derpkin_. That is @_DERPKITTEN_, and that's about it.
All right. So many thanks everybody for listening. As a final thought, I actually enjoy the vampires quite a lot. It's kind of as far as source of fiction, I've read Bram Stoker's Dracula. I've seen most of the movies. It's a good character if used right, and I think this game, even though he's only used as protagonist in the final boss fight, it makes for a good setting. So I do think the setting, at least, certainly gives this game a lot of credibility, because I don't think this game would have the same punch if it was just like generic horror monster X.
I'm kind of tired of the whole vampire zombie thing, because it's so done to death now.
Yeah,
but,
I can see
if it was 10 years ago, you could be creative with that stuff, but everyone's just done it to death. So
Yeah, no, I agree with that. As a final thought, there is a Dracula adventure game for the Sega CD and PC that was done by ICOM,
Yes.
the same company that made the Shadowgate games. It's very good. If you have the means to play it, I definitely recommend checking it out, because it's a fun game.
Yep. And I have a final thought, and that is goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power. Super power.